Welcome back to Lightyear the Fuse, where we take you to infinity and beyond. I was somewhat misremembering what that phrase was, Charles, which is why
you got it. You nailed
little
it.
Pause.
You did
I got it. So yeah, we are once again talking to Angus MacLane, the director of Lightyear, as well as Jeremy Lasky, who was one of the cinematographers. He was responsible for camera and layout. So
yeah, this is such a fun chat that we had with them. It was so great, and it was amazing to dive deep into action movies and the construction of them and what makes them great. And it's funny too, because I really didn't think we were going to have a long chat with these guys. I figured they were also too busy for that too. But and we thought we would be winding down at the end of an hour, but then we went another half hour. So this is only part 2 in a 3-part interview that we have going.
Yeah, I actually ran into another Pixar publicist friend at D23 Expo, which was right after we had recorded this, and they said, "Man, I heard you guys went really long on the podcast," and I said, "Yes, we did. We had someone from Pixar listening in, so I hope that she was not too bored by the conversation either." But listen, we couldn't stop. We were on a roll.
No,
you know,
there's too much good stuff to talk about.
Yeah,
and it's amazing to hear their analysis of action movies and the Mission Impossible movies. But I have a question for you, Drew. Who brought us this episode?
Oh, Charles, I have the answer for you. This episode is actually brought to you and everyone else listening at home by Jeremy Dillon and his podcast, My Favorite Album. Each week, he interviews a different songwriter, musician, filmmaker about the music they love and how it's influenced them and their work. And recently, he talked to none other than Eddie Hamilton, the wonderful editor of Mission Impossible 5 and 6, as well as Top Gun Maverick and the forthcoming Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Parts 1 and 2. Also, John B. And Elvis Ripley contributed to this episode, as well as Suchet. So we really couldn't do the show without them. Thank you guys so much, and we will be back in just a little while to wrap things up. Well, you guys share Mission Impossible DNA directly via Mr. Michael Giacchino, and I want to also encourage everyone to pre-order your Mondo vinyl. Great liner notes, I've got to say. Great liner notes. Someone.
Drew, who did those liner notes, Drew?
That would be me, and I interviewed you for the liner notes, so you're in there too.
Really?
Yeah, and we were on Zoom together, Angus. This happened a few months ago.
It should
listen. It's a blur. It's been a blur.
I guess we did that. Yeah, okay. Because we had a few interviews, so I'm glad to hear that. Yes, definitely. I mean, well, Michael and I first worked together on One Man Band, and Michael was a friend of one of the directors of One Man Band, Andy Jimenez, who incidentally worked on Lightyear. He's an amazing motion graphics artist and musician, and he's a real soundtrack nut. But he'd worked with Giacchino when I don't know if it was where they'd worked together, but this is when Giacchino had done Medal of Honor and done Alias, and he was just about to break out, and so they secured him for One Man Band, and then after that, they were very proud. Andy was very proud. They got him before he was introduced to Brad for Incredibles. So Michael and I have worked together for a while, and he was, he did Toy Story of Terror, and we both grew up with similar movies and liked similar movies and were drawn to similar things. And for this film, it was really a matter of, sharing what, he got what the references were from the film, what the kind of feeling we wanted out of it was this amalgam of 70s and 80s sci-fi and action films. And he kind of understood the origins of that, and I think paid them off brilliantly in the score itself. So that process was very easy in the sense that it was a lot of trust. Like when you're making a movie, what you want is collaborators that you can just sort of like let loose. And his skill set for composing is amazing. And so just kind of letting him go. And it's the same. Jeremy's the same, where it's like wanting just do your thing, and then we'll talk about it, and I'll react to it. And I think that's really the key to success, is finding a group of collaborators and then allowing them to do what they do well, which is incidentally what Buzz learns in Lightyear, available on Disney Plus, wherever Disney Plus is sold, and soon to be out on DVD.
Well, first of all, I think Teddy Newton takes credit for Giacchino. Charles, correct me if I'm wrong on that.
Oh, no, you're right. I think it was Teddy that worked with Michael. I'm sorry. Yeah, it wasn't Andy. Yeah, it was Teddy. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's see, so much time has passed, but you were right.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I mean, do you want to talk about any other specific, shout outs, references? I love hearing about this kind of deep dive into action movies that you guys did. And maybe Jeremy can talk about staging and how that influenced him. 'Cause there are some very striking moments, and I was just watching it the other night, and like the placement of them on the kind of desolate moon is so really wonderful, that kind of silhouette. And so, yeah, I would love to hear about that.
Do you just keep it looping 24 hours with the volume off on Disney Plus? Because that would be great, actually.
Angus told me to do that, yeah. But I have...
Yeah, and if you have multiple accounts or fake multiple accounts on Disney Plus and just get it running, that would be awesome. If you
yes.
if you purchase Disney Plus again under another name and you watch Lightyear as the first thing, and then, after a week, I don't know, do what you do, but like, that'd be great.
Charles has little kids. The onus should be on him. I am just a weirdo with a giant socks figure.
Yeah, you can't go wrong.
Like, what did you look? What were you inspired by in this action movie deep dive?
One of the things that Angus talked about from the very beginning that it is made me so happy, because it's something that I've been trying to work on for a long time, is every shot needs to tell one story. In order to understand what's happening in the film, that shot needs to be clear, and you need to know what information does the audience need right now. And it's usually one thing, and then that's your shot, or at least that's a beat in the shot, and that you never really want to try to have multiple pieces of information coming at the audience at once, because it just gets confusing. So a lot of our work, either in the action scenes or in any scene, is just, okay, what do we need to know right now? And then what's the most interesting way to film that? And in order to get that to work, I think one of the pieces that makes Lightyear successful visually is that we grabbed everybody on the team that would be a part of that final image to figure out, like, to get on the same page as to what that thing is and make sure it carries. So typically in animation, especially in CG, layout is this department where you're building things in 3D for the first time, or you're assembling parts in 3D that other teams have made, and you're putting together this sequence that is in the same medium, meaning CG graphics, as the final film will be. So you're actually seeing the film as it will exist for the first time, right? It's not a storyboard, it's not a drawing, it's not a painting, it's not a model in a turntable of a set or a character. It's all of these elements together. And when we lay this stuff out, we work very hard with editorial and obviously Angus to figure out, like, okay, this is the story we're going to tell. And now we've got it working. It's paced right. The action's clear. It feels good. Now it's going to go down to another department and they're going to work on it. Animation is going to go in and animate the characters, and lighting is going to do, make it amazing, and effects is going to do their thing. It's very easy for that scene to kind of start to erode in terms of clarity as it goes through the pipeline, because you're taking something that was cohesive coming out of editorial and viewed as a scene, and you're taking those shots and splitting it up to a bunch of different people. You take a sequence of 60 shots and you split it to 10 animators or whatever, and now they're thinking of their little piece, and it's hard to get back to the scene. So the more we could involve animation, lighting, effects, sets, anyone we could find in the early concept of how the scene would be shot, the more buy-in we had. And because everyone's part of that conversation, like they all know what the mission is. It was kind of like having a mission briefing, right? We have this team of specialists from these different departments, and they all come in and we go, okay, Angus says this is the goal. This is what this scene's about. We're going to start making that work. We don't necessarily know what the scene's going to look like yet, but we are working together, all of the same mind, to figure out how to make that. So you're grabbing contributions from everybody, and you're hearing like the animators say, well, I don't know that Buzz would do that. I think Buzz would go sit here and he'd stay there for a while, and then maybe he'd stand up later, or whatever the case is. Or, to get this action moment believable, the robots don't move that fast. So how do we make this more, Angus would talk a lot about Zurg doesn't care. Zurg doesn't hurry. Zurg is never in a hurry. He knows what's going to happen. He knows he's going to be successful. He's powerful. He doesn't run. He's not going to chase after somebody. So how do we use that? How do we put that as part of our staging? And by having everyone buy-in, once we got out of layout, that sequence maintained cohesion because all of the other supervisors knew what it should look like in the end. We had kind of a template that they were building with us to go, okay, as we refine this scene, let's not lose track of the clarity that we had before. I know, Angus talks a lot about storyboards are fairly simple because they're just drawings. And on our film, they weren't simple, but I mean, they were amazing. They were gorgeous, but they were very clear. And as you start adding things to the scene, as you start adding lighting and effects and blocking and acting, you tend to make things more complicated. You're adding information, which is giving the audience more to look at and more to respond to, and you run the risk of losing the clarity that you had in story. So in layout, it's like, let's keep that clarity. Let's figure out how to really pare things down visually so that it tells the audience what they need. The audience is looking where they need to look. We're with Buzz. We're with whoever we're supposed to be with. We're following this complicated plot. We're enjoying it. And let's make sure as we keep refining the scene, we're not sanding the edges off of that. It needs to have that punch. So, Angus, does that...
No,
that sounds like a fair...
No, that's totally fair. I mean, I think that... I mean, to expand on your earlier thing about Zurg doesn't hurry, and that's all based around Frankenstein. Like, Frankenstein is just like headed toward the village, or Frankenstein's monster rather, is headed towards the village, and people are freaking out, but he's like, "Meh." And there's this inevitability, this like zombies pace that he has. That's a confidence I've always been impressed with. I think with big characters like that, certainly with Darth Vader, there's a foot speed to where when Darth Vader moves a little too much or goes a little too fast, it breaks a little bit of the majesty. Like, in Empire, he's just like waving his hand and it's sending, I don't know what those crates were on Bespin that were running into Luke, but it's like he's just not, this isn't that big of a deal for him, and it makes him really powerful. And so that's kind of what we were looking for in the motion there. And to also expand on the idea of more information, it's a give and a take. If you're going to give more information, then you need to subtract some things. One thing that CG does is it tends to make everything hyper real, and it heightens it and gives you more information. And oftentimes that can kill a joke. There's a great thing, maybe Brad talked to you about this in Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, but in the shot where Tom Cruise he looks at something and we pan down or crane down to reveal the glove on the side of the Burj Khalifa, you get a huge laugh. And that was previs. So before they got up and shot it, they had it all figured out and always got a laugh, even in previs. Then they shot it and it didn't get a laugh anymore. They couldn't figure it out until they realized, because the camera was craning down and the Burj Khalifa is reflective. It was showing the reflection of the glove 8 frames maybe before you wanted to actually get it, and it was ruining the joke. And so they purposefully went back in and painted out the reflection of in the vertical column of the glove, and then the joke was restored. And that really says a lot about the frailty and the sensitivity of jokes when you're communicating them to an audience. And as you're shepherding ideas through the production process, they need to be constantly minded so that they work and they read the best that they can be. Because a joke can break easily, clarity can break really easily. That's just part of the gig. You had a question. Sorry, Drew. What was your?
Oh, I don't even know.
You don't even know.
But I do have to listen. I have to. There's some breaking news here that we got to congratulate you, Angus.
Yeah. What?
You are now part of the Criterion collection. Bernie and Wally are going to be part of the Criterion collection in November.
Wait, Bernie is in the Criterion collection? It doesn't say that.
It's part of this.
No.
It says.
How is that in the
Bernie, a short film by MacLane. Right here, buddy.
That's wonderful. Yes,
and your commentary track is on
there
there
too. Oh wow, well,
so.
that's I didn't know that. That's fantastic.
And I think that I knew that I liked you, Angus, many years before we met, when I saw on the special features when you said that there was a thing that really annoyed Brad Bird, which is when characters go like this.
Oh yeah, yes.
And so you had
what is this? You have to describe it.
It's kind of a yes with a fist, like a.
It's a fist.
Go in the air,
their fist and go yes.
Yeah, he hated that.
And then Angus made Bernie do that to annoy Brad Bird.
Yeah, yeah. It doesn't really deliver a joke. But just to poke at him. But
I guess it delivered a joke for you.
Yeah,
you can just laugh every
sometimes
time
you entertain
thinking
yourself.
of how much it's annoying Brad Bird.
Well, I mean, and you would kind of go, "Hey, Brad, check that." He's like, "Yeah." But no, Brad is he's so giving and caring. Like before the movie came out, he mailed me and just like congratulations. Like he's been in it and he understands the challenges and to be that connected to the crew after having not worked with him for many years, like it's really wonderful of him to do that. One thing to your earlier thing, Drew, you were saying about the investigation we did into breaking down action films. I did do a unifying theory of all of this that of action films that really won't this. It's so nerdy and exhaustive. And it just will take too much time to get into, but I will share one tidbit. We discovered in looking at action films that there was always a plot element or a MacGuffin or some sort of like thing that the hero got that helped them on their journey, usually in the like break into Act 2. And I really noticed it around the Bourne Identity. So when he goes into the bank and he gets that, he gets the safe deposit box, and then he gets this bag. He pulls all the stuff, puts in this red bag, and it's basically the red bag of help. So I figured out I started looking for that kind of bag of help in other movies, and I saw it pretty consistently. And I think, and I would like to challenge you both now to see if we can figure out what that is for each of the Mission Impossible movies. So what is the prop that helps our hero right as the break into Act 2? I'll start with the Mission Impossible 1 just to kick it off. It's probably the gum. The gum is red, the red and blue.
Yes.
So that's what's going to help. That's the one little plot thing that's going to help him. Is there now Mission Impossible 2? I'll be honest, I'm going to need to lean on you for that one. As I have not seen that in a while.
I don't know does he get anything, Charles?
I'm trying to think of what.
While he thinks of that, do you want to talk about my favorite deleted character? Jeremy doesn't know this, that I'm obsessed with this talking suitcase.
Oh, yeah. I had a talking suitcase at one time. The talking suitcase, it was Buzz crash landed on the planet, and then he had this talking suitcase. I don't know. I mean, it was the funny thing about it was it had all of the things you would imagine in an emergency pack, but every time Buzz would pull out one of the elements, like a flare gun, the suitcase would comment on it and be like, "Oh, flare gun, excellent choice." And so we had this whole sequence where he was fighting a robot dog, whatever, and then it kept commenting on just providing commentary. It did
I need to see what this.
It ultimately, well, it looked like a suitcase. It looked a little bit like the 1970s Fisher Price doctor kit, where you open it up and you got all the spaces for everything. I don't know, wasn't that fancy.
Charles, do we have any red bags of help?
I don't know about any red bags of help in MI2.
Okay, so moving on to 3. What do they get? What does he get that helps him out in 3?
Do you know the answer, or are we all trying to figure it out?
I mean, you can brainstorm it. I mean, I think the microdot is probably is the thing that leads him on the path. He gets the postcard.
That's true.
Right.
That's true.
Or the
Angus knows all the answers.
But that's more of a story element. That's not like a tool that he uses in
it's
action.
it's a thing that helps him move on. I mean, you could say that whatever backing up earlier, I mean, he does get that gun in the go get the GLG 20s in the truck or whatever he said. They say, I don't know, not really.
Oh, the things that Luther has.
Yeah, the thing that Luther's gun, the gun.
Did you guys ever think about giving Lightyear a quirk like Ethan Hunt? Like we love his amazing drawing skills. He's very good at close-up magic. He has a incredible memory.
Well, yeah, that's what the math is on the canopy. That's true.
Yeah, that is that's like the Shanghai where he draws it in 3.
You are correct. It is like the Shanghai drawing.
Is that a reference? Is that a little?
I can neither confirm nor deny. As I think that given that Star Trek Day and Disney Plus Day are occurring on the same day, I can only assume that Paramount and Disney are at war for the audience's attention. But yes, that there is that kind of the China marker.
Well, four is like the train that has
correct
shit in
correct.
It.
That is the perfect example of a red bag of help. Is that train is, I mean, there's first the big jump in that movie is him going in the car, flipping around in the car when they go over, that's go over the end. And then actually the red bag of help isn't that, it's the flare. It's the flare and the dead guy, because that's what he uses to get out. That's the red is finding the flare. True. And so that's that. And so oddly, it's usually red. There's like, I
was thinking of the goggles too. He has those goggles outside, and then he puts them back in his pocket, and he ends up using them again when he's running through the sandstorm.
Yes, but that's late in the movie. The red bag usually happens earlier.
Red.
Yeah. Okay.
In Fallout.
Okay.
And let's see. Let me see. 5.
What's 5?
Well, let's see. What's the?
I mean, they have the gadget boat that they get in
yeah.
Indiana.
There's the gadget boat that helps them, but isn't that in a way? It could be the. He does get the flute gun
in the opera.
I don't know.
No, and Benji gets an envelope, right? Benji gets an envelope going into the opera. Could that be his little bag of help?
Yeah, no, yes. But it does switch to his point of view there. I don't know. It's not a hard and fast rule, but it's interesting if you look at most action films. They have this there's this thing that helps them along. That helps our hero.
So what is it in Lightyear? The crystal?
It's socks. Socks is the bag of help.
It sucks.
What about is this an example like in Die Hard he gets the bag of the explosives. He takes them away from the bad guys, and he's got that bag of the C4 or whatever.
Yeah, once he fights the guy, I have a machine gun, like all that stuff he gets, that's his bag of help.
What is it in Fallout then?
Well, let's see. What's the end? What's the act break for Fallout? They're blending together. Okay, so he does. They go on the Halo jump, and then they.
Well, yeah, he's got the mask maker, and none of it ends up actually helping because it breaks.
And then the White Widow. Just a second. Scanning through the movie.
Jeremy has heard this 1,000 times.
No, I'm shocked. I mean, when Angus talks about in the pre-production for the film, when he was doing all this research and looking at all these different action films and figuring out how it works, he's underselling it. I mean, he's put together an hour-long talk on what he learned from all this, having mapped out, I lost count of the movies that he watched, good ones, bad ones, in between. And I mean, it was exhaustive. The study of action films is a university class that he's put together. It's not like I watched a few and I made some notes. And that's kind of emblematic of how Angus approaches anything, which I think is what makes it was made working on the movie so fascinating, is that he goes all in. You may not know that from just talking to him, because he certainly doesn't come across like he's done his research, but man, it's all in there.
Well, I remember at the premiere, I went up to you and you were like, I don't know if I can say what it was, but you reference, there's a cut on Buzz's face at the end of the movie that is a reference to an action movie. Like, the amount of insane detail. Now Angus is looking confused. Do you remember this?
Is it the cut before the explosion?
Well, you said that where the cut is.
Oh, you mean like a laceration on his head? Yes, there's a laceration.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll just say that Buzz has an injury on his above his right eye that is a reference to a movie.
Yeah.
I thought you were saying like a physical cut, because cutting to
an editorial cut.
Because the editorial cut, there is a reference to the right before the big explosion at the end. That's a reference to Lance Henriksen in Hard Target, of course, when he unscrews the grenade and then it's like, ooh, and then so there's just one of the many Hard Target references in the movie.
So John Woo was there.
Oh, I love I love John Woo. We were not able to put in the wide angle POV where the character enters their own POV. That was in a lot of those that I really enjoy.
We had a whole scene with doves, and we were told we didn't have the budget to make.
We couldn't afford the doves.
It was disappointing, and they had no paper. We couldn't have paper.
So I quickly going back to that hour-long chat you said, I assume that's something that was done internally at Pixar and is not publicly available.
Yeah, no, it's not publicly available. It's like my brain algorithm of like what, I actually called the talk the bag of help, but yeah, it's a trade secret now. It's trade secrets.
Of course.
By the end of this discussion, where you you could see like the code of the Matrix in every action movie. Oh, okay.
Yes, and the way that I pitched it to Jeremy was, hey, why don't you come by the room and we'll watch it was a Vin Diesel movie. It was the Last Witch Hunter, and we're watching this movie, The Last Witch Hunter. And I started telling him I'd never seen the movie before. I'm like, here's what's going to happen. And I was pitching about 10 or 12 beats in the movie, and then those things would come true. And that was when I could see the Matrix for it. Now, it's a good example, because it's like once you figure out that code, it ruins things in a way. Like the Matrix, you can never really go back. Once you've seen, Carl Hungus.
I'm remembering sitting watching that movie, and it was just fascinating to hear you talk about as things fell in line, because it's not a great movie. I'll just say it's not a great movie. Not Vin Diesel's best, but you can see that there's a bunch of structural stuff that works, and then when it doesn't work, you really feel it. And that was sort of I think, Angus, one of your points of one of your reasons for doing this research project, right, is like, let's know if we're going to break something, if we're going to change something. Do we really want to do that? Do we really want to break that structure? And we better have a pretty good reason.
Yeah, the thing I haven't figured out is the rhythms of these movies extended even into non-genre films. At a certain level, there was a rhythm that I think that a lot of popular movies have, that it was worth understanding. In my mind, it was like we were making a movie that was meant to be an amalgam of those things, just as Buzz is an amalgam of characters. Buzz is fairly generic in a way, it just taken by himself. And so it's funny to read reviews that are like, it's just like, it's like so bland or generic. It's like, well, yeah, but the point of it was to be this amalgam of those things. So mission accomplished, I guess, from the standpoint of like, it needed to feel like that kind of, have that kind of narrative. And there are certain expectations for, American action cinema that we were fulfilling. I mean, it's not a thing you see in animation very much. And I can't recommend it given the amount of intense work it is to even have a character put on a shirt is so expensive in animation, but that's not a line item in a live action budget. Just different problems.
All right, we are done with part 2. I wouldn't say done because I feel like the conversation still burns in our hearts. And also I text Angus all the time, so that conversation really does never stop. So
And we've got a part 3 coming up too.
we do have part 3 coming up.
It just never ends. We're coming at you.
How are you feeling about it, Charles?
Great. And next week we really get deep into their rankings. That's really what just the whole conversation next week is about, analyzing the Mission Impossible series and their rankings, and of course the hair rankings, of course, as well. That's always
Yeah, a lot of times that comes off. We usually spring that towards the end of the conversation. We thought we were springing it towards the end of the conversation there, and it kind of snowballed into its own section. But
yeah. It was a springboard for more amazing analysis from Angus and Jeremy. And this part, there was great stuff too. Angus talking about Ghost Protocol, that there's a shot, that the story about how there's a shot, and we never heard this before. At least I don't remember hearing this, about there's a shot in the Burj sequence where the camera move to the glove got a huge laugh in the previs, but when they shot it, it didn't get a laugh anymore because they realized that the reflection of the glove was coming just a few frames early, and it ruined the joke. And then they finally had to paint it out, and then suddenly the joke worked again. I don't remember ever hearing that story before from Bird or anybody.
No, we need to reach out to Todd Vaziri, who I believe was doing all the compositing on that scene, to see if this is a true story.
That's true. We should. Yeah. Hopefully, if you're listening, Todd, or we'll just bother you on Twitter, and we'll make sure to get the answer from you. And then also, I wanted to ask you, because I don't think he ever said, what is the movie reference for the cut that's above Buzz's right eye? He said there was a laceration on Buzz's face.
I don't think this is talking out of turn or we'll get anybody in trouble, but it is actually Commando, which I know we talk about Commando elsewhere.
We talk about Commando. Yeah. I don't know if that was this week or if it's next week, but he does break down Commando and talks about it at one point. So he clearly loves Commando. So okay. So that now I have to revisit Commando. I haven't watched it since I was a kid. Now this made me want to watch it again, just talking with him about it. And now I want to see it even more, to see if that's what the reference is to Buzz's
laceration. On his, I think above his eye. So yeah, pretty cool.
Good stuff. Was there anything else, or should we?
I love these two, and I just was very happy that they took the time out to talk to us, because it really meant a lot. And
everyone should watch Lightyear.
Yes.
If you haven't watched it already, check it out. If somehow it's in IMAX somewhere again, maybe it will be for award season if we're lucky. I don't know. Go see it on the biggest IMAX screen you can, because those IMAX transitions and everything are so cool.
Yeah, I love that movie so much. I have a giant socks toy that I don't think you've seen, Charles, but it is life size. And
the socks character is my favorite, for sure.
Yeah, it is a life size socks.
Yeah. Well, I want to tell everybody to sign up for our Patreon, patreon.com/LightTheFuse. You can sign up at the bonus content level. We do bonus episodes every week. We talk about all kinds of stuff. We did what have we talked about recently? We did a whole hodgepodge discussion where we got into my wife's rankings for the Mission Impossible movies, because somehow she's never seen them until once we did the 200th episode and we had Tom Cruise on the show. Then my wife was like, maybe I should watch these movies.
She finally understood what the podcast was about, and yeah,
my wife has awesome taste in movies. And she doesn't watch that much. She's not as much of a movie person. Clearly, she's a psychologist. She doesn't work in movies at all, and so she doesn't have much interest in it. But she has great taste in the movies that she does watch and rewatch over and over again. And she did really, really enjoy the Mission movies. And you'll have to sign up for our Patreon to find out what her rankings were, if that's something that you've been dying to know.
That's going to drive a lot of subscribers.
We still have to get Katie, your wife's rankings. We need to find that out. You'll have to tell me on the Patreon. Yeah. Get the answer and then tell us over there. Sign up for the Patreon. There's also the monthly Zoom chat level. And anyway, we always have great bonus episodes over there every week, and it's great. You can also buy a shirt or a magnet or a pin or a mask or whatever from our TeePublic store, which is linked from our website, lightthefusepodcast.com. If you go to the merch tab, you'll get a direct link to our store there. You can also check out, while you're on our website, the episode guide tab, and then you'll see for every episode we've got show notes, and it's a great visual companion to our show. Anything else, Drew?
Well, yeah, I want to encourage people to follow us on social media at LightTheFusePod on Instagram and Twitter. I also want to encourage everybody to like, subscribe, rate, and review wherever you're listening to this podcast, and to just tell people, get the word out. You know, you think we're big shots because we had Tom Cruise on. Not true. You know, we need all the help we can get, and that comes down to you talking about this show. So do it.
Get the word out.
Get the word out.
I need to give a special thank you to Ben Wright and to our friends in Texas. So thank you, Ben. Thank you, our friends in Texas. And I also want to say that our editing and mixing is always wonderfully done by Luke Burson, and our beautiful music that is legally iffy.
Yeah.
That was done by Kevin Blumenfeld. Thank you to Kevin. Thank you to Luke. And we'll be back with part 3 of our chat with Angus and Jeremy. Lightyear the Fuse. Thanks again for listening, everyone. Before we go, another mission, should you choose to accept it, please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And remember that you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at LightTheFusePod, and email us questions or comments at lightthefusepodcast@gmail.com. This message will self-destruct in 5 seconds.